I'm a firm believer in everyone. They have a unique brain and a unique body, and it's truly a gift to the world. And it may not be like you think the norm, but there is no norm. And embrace the gifts you have.
Hello, I'm John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And it is a beautiful winter day here in Prince George, and this is our podcast number 200, actually. And we have a very, very special guest today, and her name is Sandy J. And Sandy has an amazing bio. She is an author, an international podcaster, a public speaker, and she is into fitness, and she's going to tell us all about that. Welcome to the show, Sandy.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. I want to be in Canada with you, John. That's where I want to be.
Oh, I love it. So where are you now physically? Are you in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania?
I'm 30 minutes outside of Philadelphia, the suburbs of Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah. So, and how's the weather there, actually?
It's the same thing. It's probably not as cold as where you are, but we're supposed to, please, I want it. We're supposed to get some snow tomorrow. So I'm excited about that. We haven't had any snow. Last year, we hardly got any snow.
Isn't it amazing? Now, the same by us. It's very normal here to get snow in October, November, December. We haven't had any snow really until last night, and we have about less than 2 inches. And so it's global warming is probably not good for us, but we'll take it anyway, you know. So now, for our international guests that are watching us from around the world, is the British Columbia is obviously in Canada. Prince George is in the center of British Columbia, and British Columbia is a beautiful, beautiful province. The main cities that people likely know is Vancouver or Victoria, and so we are 500 miles north of Vancouver, 800 kilometers for the people in Europe, and that puts us physically in the exact center of British Columbia, east to west, north to south. And so, but it's a big province, and but it's beautiful. So that then being said, Sandy, tell us about your background, and obviously I've read your bio, and so starting with where were you born, and then where did you get your education, and then from there on forward?
Sure. So I was born in New Jersey. Did you ever hear of Jersey? They say Jersey girl.
Yeah.
I wasn't born far from where I am now, about an hour and a half, but it was totally different. Where I am now, oh my God, John, it's like a dream come true. I never I did imagine myself with a home, with a yard, little fence. Every day I wake up, this many years later, and think, am I dreaming? Am I really here? Because where I grew up in the projects, and
Right.
most people didn't expect, to move out of there.
Right.
And even for me, they would say, just be grateful to graduate high school, get an apartment somewhere, not right in where the projects is.
Right.
But I don't know, John, even since I was a kid, I was like, yeah, are you sure I can't get out of here? I have bigger plans. There's stuff I want to do. I always thought that. I always thought, I got places to go. I had people to see. And I was very fortunate, to get out.
Yeah, and you had it already from an early age. So is it semi-rural then where you are? It's not big city where all the houses are all jammed together and there are lots of apartments and all of that kind of thing.
Not where I am now. I'm in the suburbs, so it's really nice. The city is about 35 minutes from me.
Right.
But yeah, I got a beautiful house and a beautiful yard, and I love it.
So Then you went to your schooling, and
Yeah.
and tell us a little bit about your background there.
So I think I just want to back up just a little bit and tell you
Okay.
how it even made it possible to get out of that area. And it was mostly from the people that it's going to sound crazy, but I called them my project bench people, and there was 5 of them. And there was 5 people that since I was 9 years old who truly believed in me. Kids, like older than me, but that were like, "Hey, we're not sure if we're getting out of here, but we're counting on you getting out of here." And they were the most unlikely motley crew. The teachers, most of them, and the mentors that were supposed to be supporting me and saying, "Yes, you can do it, you can make it," were trying to, not, I wouldn't say discourage me because they were well-meaning people, but they were trying to not get my hopes up too high. Like, "Sandy, just graduate high school. That'll be a first in your family. Be grateful to get a job, a waitressing job around here, something that will pay the bills." And I thought, here people are saying all about, you know, 5 people you hang out with, they reflect your life and you want to be like them. And the people that really pushed me and told me I can do it, they never made it out. And
Yeah.
the teachers and the mentors and relatives that should have been supporting me were more like, "Listen, you got a rough situation here. Just be grateful for this." So when I hear about people saying, "Who's your 5? Who's your 5?" I mean, there was, we called him Stoner Pete, Rock and Roll George, Heartthrob Billy, Sexy Debbie, Rough 'em Up Tom. They were like not people you would say Sandy hang out with,
Yeah.
but man, oh man, did they have my back. They were like, "Nope, you're not drinking. You're not doing drugs. You got big plans. We're counting on you." Isn't that the craziest thing? So because of them and one of my dance instructors, I was able to get a scholarship to go to Montclair College, right near New York City, for dance. And from there, I went on to teach dance in aerobic and fitness studios. And John, I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. Never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I just said, my mission is to spread joy. However I
Yeah.
do it, that's all I'm doing. And whatever I did it to shine and serve others. So I did waitress for many years to make money, and I pumped gas, but I was doing it all
Just to
out.
get
I
by,
wanted to
right?
master what I did. And I
Right.
did the same thing when I taught my aerobic classes. So here I am doing an internship for my graduate program, and I was fortunate enough to meet the right people, the who's who in Philly, and they said, "Hey, would you like to work in our home, train us?" I'm like, "Train you?" Back there weren't any fitness trainers. I said, "Okay." And they were willing to pay me a lot of money. And because of those connections, and because I didn't want anything from them, I wasn't trying to manipulate them to get a job on TV or in their corporation. They wanted to help me even more because I was just there for them.
Right.
And they loved that about me. They kept saying, "Sandy, you are going to make it far because we can see through the people that are trying to manipulate us."
Right.
And it just kept going and going until my in-home business built up to, I had 15 people going to people's homes. And then they're like, "You should open a gym." And then they helped me open a gym, and it just kept spiraling. So my entire life, I've been an entrepreneur owning and operating health and wellness centers, but it wasn't that was my dream. My dream was still to this day to spread joy in any way I can. That's it.
And podcasting is part of that, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I started that maybe 15 years ago, my one podcast, because I wanted to get to meet people that wouldn't pick up the phone for me. So when I owned
Exactly.
health clubs, I was very excited about how the brain and body worked. And I wasn't buying what they were telling me. And I wanted to get
Right.
to people that were on the cutting edge. Well, I didn't know how to get to them. So I thought, I'll start a radio show. And it was
Yeah.
called What Keeps You Up at Night. And I was able to meet so many amazing people from around the world that were making a positive difference.
So that was pre. If I look at podcasting in a general sense, I did somewhat the same as you did. I had before COVID. If I look at podcasting, it's relatively new. Five,
Yes.
6, 7, 8, 9 years, and then before that, it had different forms: blogging or interacting. How do you interact
Yeah.
with people? And then I was involved in that already on a local, regional level, to a certain extent international, because I was born in Holland and had some connections to Europe. But it came all together more or less when podcasting as we know it today is the
Yeah.
start of evolving forward. And if I look back 20, 30 years ago, in my case, how people got together, they either had dinner together, socialized together, were together in some groups in some form or fashion where they interacted. Then obviously the computer came, Google came, iPads and iPhones came, and a lot of that started disappearing, where people did not interact directly, but usually by those other medias and platforms. And then the way I look at podcasting now is where again it became socializing, because there you and me are sitting here talking to each other from long distance away from Philadelphia and from Prince George, British Columbia, and having this discussion. But at the same time, you and me already know that likely thousands of people will be watching this around the world, because
Yeah.
podcasting has become one of the more popular platforms that is attracting a lot of people, where they become then a party to the interaction between two individuals like you and me are doing right now. And
Yeah.
I see a great future going forward in that direction. And then technology obviously has made a difference, because when I started blogging, podcasting, or interacting through local video or television
Yeah.
stations, I was relying more on the area around us here, the northern British Columbia, in fact, and was thinking about I should set up another studio, because we have a studio here, an apartment
Mhm.
that I had actually, and I should set up another studio so I get more interesting persons involved in Vancouver. And the more we thought
Yeah.
about it and saying, that doesn't make sense, because if I watch CNN or any of the other programs, virtual has really become something that is very close to, it is just like you and me are sitting here together. And when I
Mhm.
do on live interviews, then I sit on that couch, the other one sits here, but this is virtually the same, but you're sitting away a long distance, and I interview, as you do, people from Europe, South America, Asia, and from all over the world, and immensely interesting. And I think it's a whole new approach to socializing and interacting, but not the two individuals or three individuals, whatever it may be, but all the thousands and thousands of people that are listening to it, around it, and become a party to it, because they relate to things that you're sharing, I'm sharing, and we're sharing together.
And it really helps so many people. I hear this all the time, that are so lonely, John. There are so
Yeah.
many people, that just feel disconnected. And I'm not saying you definitely want to be with humans. I mean, I can't tell you during COVID how many times I went to the local grocery store just to connect with humans.
Yeah.
But in this way, it really is helping so many people. that can't get even out of their homes
Exactly.
to be able to feel a part of the world. And they actually start bonding with you and who you are, and the podcasts they listen to. It's more about, oh, I can't wait to see what John's doing,
Exactly.
and they feel like they're
Exactly.
really sitting there with you.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's amazing. So just coming back to your history, so there you didn't want to be an entrepreneur, but then when you decided to go to New York and to get focusing on dance, was it
Mhm.
ballet that you were doing then, or what form of dancing were you focusing on then?
Everything. I
Uh,
was horrible, by the way, at ballet. So the way it is, if you want to make it on Broadway, you have to be able to do everything. And I
right.
did everything: tap, jazz, modern. They forced me to do ballet, but I was the worst. And I love dance. I still dance. I teach dance. But what I realized real quick, John, after being at school for 3 years at Montclair, I would practice 8 to 12 hours a day. And other dancers would come in after partying all night and they'd blow me away. They'd be so much better. And I'd be like, oh my God, like they just had this natural talent. So, you know, I always say things work out for the best, and you just have to keep your eyes, moving forward, because you never know where it's going to take you. But I was really devastated and took off a year, didn't know what I was going to do because I knew I wasn't going to make it on Broadway. And during
So
that year, go ahead.
what year would that have been? I just kind how old were you then when you did that? When you were on
So
Broadway,
at 20, I was around 20.
right?
Yeah, I was the third
So
year of college.
right,
Yeah, and I was like, I'm not going to make it.
yeah,
Not on Broadway. I
yeah.
mean, you know how you're like in your hometown, you're like the best dancer ever, and then you go, and I'm like, oh my God. So I took a year off, and then it ended up, I landed back at a college in Pennsylvania, Westchester, where they had dance in the health and phys ed department. So
Okay,
that's where I really opened my eyes to the whole mind, body, spirit, and how the brain worked with the body connection.
exactly.
And I was able to use my dance, as far as understanding how humans work. I mean, that's really what it was. And that's what I was telling you. From there, they had you do an internship at a local gym, and I started teaching aerobic classes and met all these wonderful people.
And then it clicked, and you found your passion, combining all of those things that you had been training for, adding to
Yep,
that the social interaction about it, and then all of a sudden you found a fitness combination. You're an excellent
absolutely.
communicator, obviously. That's another one that is an asset that you had and have that brought you forward. And then the other part that I saw is that you now, as you already know, Canada is a hockey community in particular, and we are very good
I
at
do.
hockey, and so you became a trainer of the Philadelphia Flyers, and say, "What? Oh my God!" So I see you skating around the skating rink. No, So tell us about that part because again, that's very unique.
Yeah. So I want to emphasize, because I want everyone to really, you know, understand that with me having a focus, one focus, to spread joy, everything else just fell in place. I was all about whatever I was going to do for work, I was going to have fun with it. And I was going to do it to serve others. And that was a big thing for me. And so when I met people, like I said, my clients were like, oh, come train me in my home. You get to know these people really well because you're in a lot of these people's homes that you would never meet 3 days a week, and you really get to know 'em. And one of
Yeah.
those people was Ed Snyder and Pat Croce. Pat Croce was the trainer for the Philadelphia Flyers at the time, and a close friend of Ed Snyder who owned the Philadelphia Flyers. And I got to work with Ed Snyder. And then he saw that his players that year, one of them being Eric Lindros, was constantly getting injured, because what would happen is they'd get injured, they'd do their physical therapy, they'd get back on the ice, and then they wouldn't do the exercises anymore.
Yeah.
So he said to me, listen, I've been talking to Pat Croce, who was the full-time trainer, and we want you and your team of 7 people to come in and work with the guys after physical therapy, because we know they should be doing it, but they're not doing it. So here I am in my late 20s, a female, bringing in 7 other male trainers to work with these guys. It was a dream come true. Oh my God, it was so much fun.
Yeah. And how long were you involved in that?
Oh, so here's the deal. We love him. I was only there a year because Ed Snyder brought in Bobby Clark, and Bobby Clark did not like the idea of having a female trainer in the locker room, and also felt that, hey, listen, these guys should be doing it on their own. They shouldn't be having private trainers with them. So I was only fortunate enough to be in there for a year, but it was still fun.
Amazing experience, though.
Yeah. Got to travel around with the team, so it was great. Even after I wasn't training them, because I was working with Ed Snyder, I got to travel all over, and it was fun, you know?
So you would travel with the team going to the different locations?
My favorite, well, I'm trying to think of the best one I can remember, and I remember going to Buffalo for like the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got to go on the private plane. I was so excited. I was like a little kid, you know? But then they lost, and I realized what people feel like. So I was thinking about all the people that spent all this money to see their favorite team in a playoff, and they lose, and you just want to cry and go home, but now you're there.
My God, yeah. So take me a bit further in your involvement in speaking and being an in-demand speaker, and then you're still physically training people, but not on in some combination that includes, I'm very much into. Just a little bit of background on me. I'm 83 years old. I turned 83 November the 1st. And
Happy birthday.
Well, thank you. And I'm very much into trying to be healthy. So I'm very conscientious of diet. My wife is vegan. I call myself 80-20. And then at the same time, I've been very involved in fitness. Everybody gets a scare of some sort. So in 2008, I got a case of diverticulitis, and that ruptured, and it's your colon. And usually it's diet that, if you say I have pain in my left side, it usually indicates diverticulitis area, and your right side is how do you call it? The other part, in any event, so it burst in my case, and so then you have about 48 hours to kind of get it fixed, and if you don't, it starts attacking other organs. So I came about that close to not making it, and but then it got me in a serious way to looking at diet and becoming more involved in training, going to the gym. I was one of those that always made a commitment around New Year and saying, okay, I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing, including going to the gym. Yeah. So you do that for about 3 weeks, and then you find 100 reasons that's why you can't go.
Exactly.
So then I got involved. I hired, and this comes familiar to you, I hired a trainer. And so I hired a trainer in a serious way, went to the gym and started to become very serious about 6-7 years after that. in about 2015, 16. Somebody said to me in the gym, "Hey, John, have you ever thought about competing?" Now, I'm already 67, 68, and saying, "Me?" and so then I thought, yeah, maybe that's what I should be doing. And so I started then more serious way getting ready for competition. And so that's what I did. And then 2017, 18, I competed in Northern British Columbia, bodybuilding and physique, came in second bodybuilding, third in physique. Now I'm approaching 70 or into my 70s. And
Yeah.
then that qualified me for the provincials. Came in third physique and provincials, second bodybuilding, which qualified me for the nationals and for the Arnolds. And and I was in the
Oh, I love
class
it.
of 55 years and older. Well, most of
Yeah,
those already could be my kids virtually, but I still did very, very
absolutely.
well. Then COVID came, obviously, and then everything kind of backed away from it, still stayed actively involved, but now I'm again at 83. I'm again in training for competing this year. I used to say last year, but it's now 24. So sometimes mid-year, again going to compete locally, regional, hopefully get to the provincials, and then again to the nationals and the Arnolds later this year or early next year, in 25. By then I'm 85, and and I'm a
Love it.
so this makes me the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America, and so now
That's awesome.
I know you're an author as well, and
Yeah.
so am I, and I don't know if you can see this or not, but I have 3 books here, and I'm working on a fourth one. But since we're talking about the subject of physical fitness, and I want to give you the background on myself. I'm very conscientious of staying mentally, physically, and fit, being aware of my body. Your body is precious, highly
Mm.
forgiving, but only tolerating so much. And the better care you take of it, the longer you will live. And so I'm writing a book about living young, dying old, and it's about
Ooh, I
not the
love it.
age but the physical fitness. And I'm going to live till I'm 120. So that's the book that I'm writing. I'm going to show you the other 3 as well, but this one will come out in July of this year. So I got a picture of the book, the front picture. Can you see it?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I didn't know that. Look at this.
Yes. And so the first book that I wrote, and then is that I have, I was born in Holland in 1940, just the
Mhm.
start at the beginning of the Second World War. We had a pretty tough time, So, and my mom had 3 kids. I was born in November. The war already was well on the way. My dad was drafted in the Dutch army, and the last time they saw him was in Rotterdam just before the bombing, where thousands and thousands of people died, and they didn't know if he was dead or alive for about 5 years. And so we as kids, the winter of 1944-45 was called the Hunger Winter, and it was the coldest one on record. And I still can feel the feeling of hunger. And then we as kids, my sister and my brother, the 3 of us would go every morning into the railroad yards with gunny sacks to find anything edible and burnable. And the reason that we did as kids, because the Germans wouldn't shoot us, they would boot us one, but we'd be back the following day. We were liberated by the Canadians Army on April the 12th, 1945. And from that point forward, I always knew that I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada. And it was not if, but when. And so I did, and I finally did. Actually, when I was 23, I was wanted to go when I was 17. My parents wouldn't let me, and I was then drafted into the Dutch Air Force. It was a draft for about 30 months. Good experience, But and then so then I did go to Canada, and then from there on in, started with nothing when I came there, and already people told me, that after I had been here for quite a while, that I had such an interesting life, you should write a book about it. And so I thought about it for 20 years, started, stop, start, stop, start. Writing books, as you know, is not easy. And, so then finally, about 5, 6 years ago, I said, if I don't do it now, it will never happen. So I wrote a book, and here's the title of the book, Against All Odds. It's an autobiography, and it's not about hurrah, hurrah, how successful John is. It's just the opposite, going through all the ups and downs along the way, and hopefully giving inspiration to all the people say, well, I can't do this and that, and being negative, but have that dream, and then don't give up, stay the course, and so I did that. This one. The other one that, in my case, I was not very successful academically. I failed grade 3 and I failed grade 7 3 times. And then he said, what we're going to do is this guy. So send him to the mentally challenged school. My parents were beautiful, so they had no interest. Or should we have him try to get a career or a job in some kind of a factory? So they sent me to a furniture factory, and I became a furniture maker. And, so, which served me very, very well, actually, but I was only 14 when I started. And you already know that kids can be hard at each other. And, so all the friends that I had in school, all of a sudden, at 14, I became a laborer. I'm proud of that today, but then it was kind of looked down on, and they went on to college and university, and so I kind of felt I was always very, very optimistic, but I kind of felt I had failed to a certain extent, and I knew that I could do it. I was just as good as the other guys, but somehow that always kind of stood with me, and so then, when I decided to go to Canada, I decided to leave Holland with 1 suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and I had the dream of building a lumber mill. And that meant that where the timber is in Western Canada, in the province of British Columbia. And so I took $150 and couldn't speak the language, didn't know a soul, didn't have a job. And so as I came off the train here in Vancouver, went to the immigration office and told, fortunately I was a German fellow, I could speak some German, and so I told him what I wanted to do. He said, go to Prince George, that's the boom town, that's where the opportunities are. On the bus I went to Prince George, 14 hours, and came off the bus here in Prince George. I virtually can see it from here, about 3 blocks away was the Greyhound station. Came off the bus with my suitcase, my 2 sets of clothes, and the 3 books, and I had exactly, and my employees gave me this actually, I counted my money at least 3 times. I had exactly $25.47. And
I love that plaque. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, but the other thing that I had in was attitude. No matter how tough things, I always believe that tomorrow will be a better day, and I always have had that approach. Passion, whatever I do, I give it 120%, no matter what I do. And then work ethic, I work harder than anybody, and what will result is success. I always use this now in presentations that I give, especially with younger people. Attitude, passion, work ethic, what follows is success. And so, in regards to the $25.47, within I started as a cleanup man, then a lumber pilot, and then with a year and a half I was superintendent. Within 2.5 years I already owned some businesses, including a small little lumber mill. And 10 years later I started a company I still have today, now nearly 50 years ago. A big lumber
Wow.
mill in a number of different locations and other ones. But the other part that is really even more important about not so much how successful John is or what he did, but is that even then still, Sandy, I still felt that I still had failed in a way to me myself. And he said, well, you got all these businesses and you're successful. I didn't feel that way, and then what changed it is a couple of things. The one part is that I was not very good of interacting with people, and other than inside of my company, 3 or 4 people, and other than that, I always had difficulty interacting and communicating. And then an ex-sister-in-law that I have and had is, she said to me at one day, say, I want to take you to Toastmasters. I don't know
Oh,
if you've heard, so,
of course. Oh,
and
yeah.
I said, okay, what are they doing there? She said, well, are they going to ask me questions? I said, no. She said, just sit there, you listen to them, and then if you like it, you can come back. And I said, as long as nobody asks me any questions. And they said, no, it's not going to happen. So halfway through the meeting, they said, hey, John, tell us about you. And I said, oh my God, I'll never go back here. I did go back. I stayed there for about 10 years and then rose to the highest level in Toastmaster, which is a
Oh,
distinguished
that's awesome.
Toastmaster. And and for our guests watching internationally, what is Toastmasters? Well, Toastmasters are clubs that are all around North America, including Europe, and focusing not only on public speaking, but even more importantly, on becoming good listeners and thinking on your feet and logically interacting. And so there are probably, as we speak, 450,000 people direct, indirectly involved around the world in Toastmaster clubs. There are probably 10 million that have had exposure to it to certain levels that they feel they want to. Not too many go as far as I did. Less than 1% of them become DTMs, but it changed my life. There's no question about that.
Absolutely.
So the other part that is a critical element in my life was that in January of 1997, you may find this interesting. I was in a bookstore here in Prince George, and I picked up a book, and the book's title was Driven to Distraction. And I still don't know why I picked it up. Written by Dr. Halliwell, and it was about ADHD. And
Oh,
I said, oh my God, that's me. And I bought the book and I wrote in the book in Dutch because I was ashamed of it, because it implied to a certain extent that it is a mental disorder, if you wish. And I wrote in the Dutch. Now I finally know who I am. And obviously, since that time, I found out more about it, looked at more
yeah.
Google and studied and blah, blah, blah. It's a superpower. And, so, and I include it in presentations that I do now. And then
Good.
I felt I had to write a book about it. So I did. And here's the book,
Of course you did.
ADHD Unlocked. And now the interesting
Oh,
part that you may find, Sandy, is that I bought the book January 1997. I still have it. And
okay.
Dr. Halliwell wrote the book in 1990 and a number of other ones in regards to ADHD. I will have him on my podcast next week. So, which will be
That's awesome.
interesting. Yeah. So, now ADHD is that the more now the way I wrote the book is an ADHD book. Is you can start it anywhere, go forward or backwards. It's interesting. You can start it anywhere. Typical for ADHD. So
Yes. Yeah.
and then the other part about it is that I find, it was thought that about 8% of the population have ADHD. I believe it's closer to 20%. And so do many others. Now, the other part about it is that because the frequency of occurrence, there's virtually not a day that goes by that I not interact with people and saying, I have to tell you this, I saw your book or I read about it, blah, blah, blah. I have ADHD as well. I've never told anybody, blah, 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 and all of that kind of stuff, virtually on a daily basis. The other part about it, and even going this far, that most of the successful entrepreneurs, I would say, and this will shock the world to a certain extent, 50% of them ADHD, my opinion. In fact, some of the senior people that we hire today, I have advertisements around the media, including in the advertisement, this is the management individual that I'm looking for, ADHD considered to be a benefit.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and so what I'm saying is, in regards to the book, is that ADHD is not only for, the book is not only for ADHD, it's also for slow learners that are affected by trauma or other issues. And then the books, not only mine, but others, are important to understand ADHD is that no matter what happens, you meaning in a general sense, will encounter people with ADHD. And the more you know about ADHD in a general
Yeah.
sense, is the better you will understand them, because they tend to be a little bit different. Not better, not worse, but different. And it is good to understand them. And, so that's why I did this one. And, and then obviously the other one that I did is, so many people don't like what they are doing in terms of the job that they have, or they're not happy with their life because I saw in something on, I think it was CNN or NBC or one of those places, U.S. Television channels. They said that 70% of the people in the United States don't like the job. And 75% of them are looking for other jobs. And then here, a lot of times when I interact with young people in particular, is saying, what do you want to do for a career? And they're saying, I don't know. I said, well,
Yeah.
start checking it out, because, the more you know about what you can do there, you want to be a welder, you want to be a taxi driver, you want to be an accountant, you want to be a lawyer, or for that matter, even an entrepreneur. The more you interact with them and find out what they are doing, why are they doing it, the better informed you will be. One of the most important choices you make in your life is a direction as a career. And it may take time to find the right thing, but at least start looking at that. So I felt I had to write about that as well. So I wrote this book, Finding Your Passion, Living the Dream. And saying that at 83, for me, saying fair question would be, hey John, are you living the dream? I said, absolutely I am. Every morning at 5:30 I get up. I always think I'm late. I always make my bed, and I'm always in a hurry. So, and I love to do that. So there you get a bit of my background. So
I love it all. And I'm sitting here and I'm taking notes because, first of all, I'm so happy with what you're doing in the world. It thrills me, starting with the bodybuilding. I mean, that's just incredible and awesome. And I totally believe that way. Like, you're never too old. Like what I tell my clients, you're never too old. If you feel like you want to do it, tune out all the naysayers. So kudos to you. And then as far as the book about ADHD, my passion and what I do is I do a lot of speaking engagements, not just for corporations, but also I go into colleges and high schools to teach about mental strength, mental fitness, mental awareness, but I'm a firm believer in everyone. They have a unique brain and a unique body, and it's truly a gift to the world. And it may not be like you think the norm, but there is no norm. And embrace the gifts you have. I have a son who wasn't diagnosed. Oh my gosh, John, he was 17 when he got diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum. They just thought he lacked focus or he was introverted. And finally, years later, he was a sophomore in high school. And they're like, has he ever been tested for autism? We're like, no. So he was on the high end of the spectrum. But I'll never forget this. The therapist and counselor said, I don't know if you should let him know because I don't know if it's going to affect his self-esteem. And he's already, struggling with that in high school. So let's think about how we're going to present it. So I didn't say anything to him right away. Well, it was almost 6 months later, and we have mini trampolines around the house, and he always jumped to relax him. That's the way he reset his nervous system. We used to call it, do you want a jump study? And he's jumping on the trampoline. And this was just a few years ago. And he goes, Mom, was I ever tested for autism? And I was like this. I was in the kitchen. I'm like,
Oh
yes.
my
Why do you
God.
ask? And he
Yeah.
said, well, I was talking to some of my friends online. We looked it up. And a lot of my behaviors, it fits that I'm on the autism spectrum. So I said, yes, we did. And he goes, well, why didn't you say anything? I go, honestly, your therapist was like, we're not sure if we should present it or not because it's not that obvious, even the teachers and everything. And he said, well, Mom, I'm really glad I know because now things make sense of how I am and how I operate and how I think. And I started, getting teary. And he goes, don't you dare cry, Mom. Don't you dare get upset for me. He goes, I still get upset now. He goes, I love my brain. I love
Right.
the way it is. I
Right.
know that I'm different than everybody else, but man,
Exactly.
this is what he says to me. The upside is worth it. Oh,
Exactly.
now I was crying because I was so excited. He
Yeah.
goes, isn't that what you teach, Mom? Isn't that what you teach everyone to embrace their brain and their unique gifts and how they show up in the world? I'm like, yes. He goes, well, then do that for your son. I'm like, you're right. You're right. It changed my whole world.
Right.
Now we got him in a new school that knew how to work with him. And he's a freshman at Tyler Art, which is an amazing art school and thriving. But he embraces who he is, how he shows up in the world, the school, even the mainstream school. He gets certain considerations, but he doesn't feel like it's a handicap. He feels like it's a strength because
Exactly.
what he excels at, oh boy, is he amazing at it. The
Yeah.
other side, it takes him more time to
Yeah.
focus in.
Yeah, but that's the whole point, Sandy, is that,
Mhm.
that if I look at it, I was 57 when I picked up the book, Driven to Distraction. And even then, it was not until then that it became clear to me that I was ADHD. And then it became a question. It took me then still 5 years before I talked to my doc about it, who delivered our two daughters, was a personal friend. And when I was 62, I went into his office and he said, hey, John, why are you here? And I said, I think I got ADHD. And so we looked at it together, and yeah, I do. So the point that why that is important to me is that I have an obligation to speak out about it. I have an
Yeah,
obligation to write about it because I did well with that, but it stayed with me until I was in my 60s that I felt, at least inside of
mhm.
me, that I had failed to a certain extent. Now it became clearer that if I can help others to get earlier
Yeah,
diagnosis. So, that first and foremost, they don't look at ADHD, autism to a certain extent, or being affected by trauma, that they are slow learners
yeah,
to a certain extent.
absolutely,
I would call it a superpower, and that's what I say. Now, when
absolutely.
I give presentations, which I do a lot of, and I'm believe very good at it, and so I did it. I'm now to the point where I did a presentation to about 40 different business people, successful ones between 35 and 45, whatever. And so they had 3 speakers, and they wanted to have speakers about the lumber industry, and I was the final speaker, and I said, I'm not going to talk about lumber. The other guys did already, so I want to talk about writing books, and in particular about ADHD. And so by the time I was finished, at least 3 guys stuck up the fingers and said, I've never told anybody, but I'm ADHD. And so I get now to the point that when I make presentations, which I do frequently, is that that there are a lot of people say, darn, I wish I had it too. Because they say to me, how do you do all these things? There you have all these companies that you're running, and then you're an author, you're writing books, and you do podcasting, and you do public speaking, and you do all these other things. How do you do all of that? I say, ADHD. That's the reason,
Oh my God, that's funny.
Yeah, but the key is to understand the other part, the point that I make to people is, and young people in particular, but to anybody, is saying that too often I find people, they are critical of themselves as to who they are, what they look like, how they dress, and all the other things around them. Is say, believe in yourself that you are special. Every human individual is special in their own way and unique in their own way. It's not about, I'm not perfect here, I'm not perfect. It's not about that. Become at peace with who you are and be proud of who you are, and work and conduct yourself in such a way, and then be kind and give back to the communities and to culture, and those things to me are very, very important.
I'm so glad to hear that. And I'm so glad that you're sharing your story, because every time you do, whether they have ADHD or not, they'll be like, wow, if he can do that with this and the things that they know they've been dealing with and ashamed of, it makes them more open and able to embrace who they are every single time.
And so that's kind of why I say, when I was born in Northern Holland, saw far too much that I should not have seen during the war years, still have the feeling of hunger and cold, anxiety of losing that one single parent, got counseling for that actually, the inner child in my 50s, and PTSD, and then going through the schooling system, failing grade 3, grade 7, on and on and on, and then still keep believing that I was just as good as the others, but having to prove it to myself. And then, and then not being good as a speaker, but then by coincidence, getting involved in Toastmasters, in which showed then the opportunity, because I'm good at it and I can say that, I'm proud of that, and and then I was always a good writer, and so there I grew up in northeastern Holland speaking dialect, not even High Dutch. So I had to learn to speak High Dutch, and I barely got that under control. Then I'm in Canada, now I have to speak English, and then I want to become a writer in it. So what I say is that if I can do it, anybody can do it, and where is the strength is attitude, passion, work ethic. What follows is success. And have that passion, that precious life that we've been given, and that body that we've been given, do not abuse. It will take a certain amount of abuse, but at some point it's going to say no more, and that's where we find people that in the 40s, they can't do this anymore. They say, no, I can't do that, I can't do that, and, be thoughtful, and hence my book, Living Young, Dying Old, is that, be thoughtful about your diet. Try to get exercise. You don't have to be a bodybuilder or an Olympian. At least stay active half an hour a day, 20 minutes a day, and that alone will already do wonders. And then if you go to the grocery store, you find this interesting. Like I do all the grocery shopping for myself and my wife, and and I always stay in the store on the outside. I don't go to the center aisles where they have all the food that is not good for you, and stay with the greens.
I
And
never thought of that. I never thought of that.
I never go there. Yeah.
I never thought of that way. I didn't know all the stuff that wasn't good for you was in the middle.
Yeah. So and so that's what I do. And she's a vegan, and she never tells me what to do and what I know. So we have a place in Victoria, and I'm there for the weekends. So today at 1 o'clock, I take a flight to Victoria. I stay there till Monday morning, come back to Prince George. So one of the things that I do tomorrow, go grocery shopping, but we don't talk about what I should be getting. I look at the fridge, and then I know exactly what she wants, and and what I want, and so that's what we do.
I hate grocery shopping. So my husband does the same thing. He does all the grocery shopping. I hate it. I don't like it.
Yeah, I like it, because
He loves it. He loves it.
yeah, yeah, and they know me, and the so yeah. So there you know a little bit about my background, and then kind of looking forward to yourself. So you're an author. So tell us about your books, and in particular, then from here on forward, you have had a lot of similarities to me in terms of finding that passion, combining things around health,
Yeah.
fitness, mentally, physically, and
Yeah.
obviously build a career around it, and then felt you had to write about it, and you're an in-demand speaker, and then obviously you're an international podcast that have been in some form or fashion for 10 to 15 years.
Yeah. So for me, I wasn't like you as far as I'm a great writer. I'm not. I can talk forever. So when it was suggested to me that I write my first book years ago, I did a lot of dictation. I would do it, and you'll appreciate this. I'm a mountain biker and a hiker, and I've done a lot of competitions too. And I was the oldest person in the group. I was like, yeah, I won. There was nobody else my age. But anyhow, um, that's when I did my best thinking. So I would just talk into my phone. And then I would take that information, and then oh my gosh, I look like a crazy person because there's notes everywhere and everything is color coded. And I would scribble scrabble. And for me, the whole idea of my book, John, was to get people to get in that positive, powerful mindset every single day, even if it just took a few minutes. So I had this passion to study people that exude pure joy. You know, the people you want to be around. It didn't matter to me whether they were entrepreneurs, mom, dad, CEOs. I didn't care, waitresses or waiters.
Whatever.
But years ago, I decided I was going to take a year and bribe my members and say, can I study you and do some research? I mean, people that I thought, oh, you just love being around these people. And no matter what they did, whether they had a lot of money or not, they really enjoyed life. And after about a year, I didn't see anything in common. I was like, oh, shit, like crapola. You other people are screwed. These people just have it. But then my assistant said, look, Sam, look what it is. And here it was. Every single one of them, before they entered the world, they had a routine, something they did to get them in that powerful mindset. Now, it was all different, John. Some people journaled, some people worked out, some people played jazz music, walked their dog, baked. It didn't matter. And here's the beauty of it. Some of them, it was for a few minutes, and some of them was for a few hours. But the most important thing is they weren't going to let life bat them around. They were going to choose to show up the way they wanted to show up. So then I decided, oh, this is good. I can teach people this who don't already have that mindset. So I gathered what I called the powers to be. And I took 12 different people. I was fortunate because one of my health clubs was in downtown Philly near a lot of universities. And I gathered neuroscientists, exercise physiologists, nutritionists, gurus, you name it, psychiatrists, psychologists, 12 of them. And I told them my theory. I want to create a journal, a book, something that only takes a few minutes to help people, guide them to get in that mindset if they don't already have that routine. So after another year, we created something that took 5 minutes a day. And then I found another 100 people and I said, okay, this is only going to take you 5 minutes a day. I want you to do it 30 days. And then we're going to come back and study you, free gym membership, blah, blah, blah. Well, after a year, it failed. Flat on its face. Only one person did it. I was like devastated. I'm like, what the heck? So I go back to the powers to be. And they're like, well, of course it failed. I go, what? And the one guy says, yeah, no one's going to do something that takes 5 minutes unless they already have that belief system. They're not going to think it works. So they're not going to do it consistently. You have to make it a minute to 3 minutes. They're willing to do something for a minute to 3 minutes. So then I'm like, well, why didn't you tell me? They said, you needed to find it out for yourself. I go, oh my God. So then I go back for another year and I make a journal, a guidebook that's only going to take you 1 to 3 minutes to help you get in that powerful mindset. And it was a success. I was like, yay! So that's what my books and journals are based on. Yes, if you already, like, you are an extremely disciplined person, but what I was going after are the people that weren't, that every day, they were letting life happen to them. And just taking that 1 to 3 minutes consistently every day was a start. And then other things would happen from there. And I love it. I mean, I base everything on that. And it just blows me away, the success that I've seen year after year with people that just started with that. I mean, some of them just minute to 3 minutes, and others, they're doing things that take a few hours. It's all different. And my big thing is telling people, my way isn't your way. John's way isn't your way. Find what works for you. It doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be time consuming. This is just you finding what are you willing to do every day so that you will stay on course to reach the goals that you want, not
Exactly.
I want. You.
Exactly. So have you got the book there? Is it on the
Yeah.
market?
Yep, I got them all.
Yeah, show it to us.
Okay. So the first one I wrote, and they're all, you can buy them on Amazon, is Train Your Head and Your Body Will Follow.
Yeah.
It's awesome. That's
I
me.
like it.
And then
Good picture of you.
I wrote just for the journals, and just so that it's not as long, my 30-day reset journal, which is just a little bit and has 2 journals. And then I was asked recently over COVID to write something for the youth. So I wrote this one.
I love it.
8 to 12-year-old, and it's called Recess to Reset, Journal for Kids. But guess what? I sent it to so many people. It didn't get to the kids. The adults are loving it. The grandparents are loving it. So now I'm redoing another one similar to this that are for the adults. So it's fun.
I love it. So the books that I showed you, I'm going to sign them and send them to you. Yeah, I am. And so now the other part about it is that, I don't know, I think I'm on the camera that right in front. I'm going to show you one book here. I want you to see what the price of the book is. So I'm going to be a little bit closer. Can you see this? What the price of the book is?
No, I can't see it. What does it say?
$25.47. All of them are.
Oh, of course it does. That's brilliant. Talk about mindset. Talk about attraction. Oh my goodness, that's great.
So, Sandy, we are reaching the end of our podcast. If we leave a message for what both you and me are telling the people in a general sense is that your frame of mind is critical. You know, the attitude is critical. To find the passions in your life is so critically important, not only for yourself, but everybody around you. And then work ethic, give it all that you got, give back to the culture, and you know, so and then that precious body that we all have is that, and how we look to those that are so preoccupied that they are not perfect enough. Always think about yourself as you are special and unique into who you are, and at the same time be careful with the body. It will take a certain amount of abuse, but the better you treat it, the longer it will be there for you. And that, I believe, is the message, at least from my perspective, that is important. And
Absolutely. I just want to add in to tell people, don't make a big hairy deal out of everything. You know, enjoy it. Listen to
exactly
people. Let them be your guides, mentors, but find the way that lights you up. That, you know, what gets you out of bed in the morning. You know,
right,
find your way.
and preserve a sense of humor about it. That's the
Absolutely.
message,
I have
right?
3 things I say: movement, words, and laughter. Every day I
Yeah,
move, every day I focus in on one word, on how I want to show up, and I change the word, whether it's courage, confidence, joy, peace, and laughter. I make light of the most difficult situations. Movement,
I
words,
agree
and laughter.
100%. Sandy, it was a privilege and a pleasure to have you on my podcast, and we should stay in touch. I'm going to say the other thing that we do with our podcast when we do them is this one will come out Monday. Usually, when we do, normally we have them out within 24 hours, and then we don't release one on Friday. We do it on Monday. So yours
Mm.
will be available to you on Monday.
John, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it, and I loved listening to your stories. And I'm so grateful that you're doing that in the world. I am so grateful.
Thanks, Sandy, and I really appreciated yours as well. We'll stay in touch. You take care now. Bye bye.
Bye. Toodles.
Toodles.